He didn't just admire Paul Newman, he tried to love him, in secret. Brandon DeWild, the child star from Shane, lived with a hidden longing that Hollywood never dared to show. Behind the cameras, between the lines, was a story of forbidden desire, quiet gestures, and heartbreak no one talked about, until now. This is the truth they buried. Childhood, family, and entering Broadway at age 7. Brandon DeWild was born Andre Brandon DeWild on April 9, 1942 in Brooklyn, New York. From the moment he was born, the stage was calling to him. His father, Frederick A. Fritz DeWild, was a veteran Broadway actor and stage manager, while his mother, Eugenia Wilson, worked part-time as a stage actress. Their shared passion for the stage created a household filled with scripts, lights, and the noise of rehearsals, a world where Brandon's artistic instincts were nurtured from the start. When the family moved to Baldwin, Long Island, Brandon became increasingly exposed to the performing arts. He was no longer just a boy watching from the wings, he belonged on stage. At age 7, he made his Broadway debut in Carson McCullers' acclaimed play, The Member of the Wedding. His performance as John Henry West wowed audiences with its emotional depth, and critics took notice. Brandon became the youngest actor ever to win the Donaldson Award, a prestigious honor at the time. The play's success led to a 1952 film adaptation directed by Fred Zinnemann, in which Brandon reprised his role on screen. That same year, he won a Golden Globe Award for Most Promising Newcomer, a rare achievement for someone who hadn't even reached his teens yet. But his breakthrough came in 1953, when he played Joey Starrett in George Stevens' Western masterpiece Shane. His tearful plea, "Shane, come back," is etched into film history. A raw, honest line that has resonated for generations. At just 11 years old, Brandon was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, cementing his place as one of Hollywood's brightest rising stars. Following the success of Shane, Brandon made the leap to television, a natural move for a young star who had already captured America's heart. From 1953 to 1954, he starred in the ABC sitcom Jamie, where his natural charm and comic timing shone through, and audiences embraced him all over again. But Brandon wasn't content with staying in one lane. Through the 1950s and 60s, he appeared in a wide range of series: Wagon Train, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Virginian, each role showcasing his adaptability and quiet intensity. As he grew older, Brandon craved more than just fame. He sought depth, complexity, substance. In 1959, he starred in Blue Denim, playing a troubled teen grappling with adult dilemmas, a performance that signaled his coming of age, both on screen and off. Gone was the wide-eyed boy from Shane. In his place stood a young man ready to challenge himself as an artist. Then came All Fall Down, 1962, where Brandon held his own opposite Warren Beatty, playing the idealistic younger brother in a morally tangled family drama. But it was in 1963's HUD, alongside the magnetic Paul Newman, where Brandon delivered one of his most compelling performances. As Lonnie Bannon, a young man caught between loyalty and conscience, Brandon brought emotional nuance and restraint, proving once again that he wasn't just growing up. He was leveling up. In 1959, he starred in Blue Denim, portraying a teenager grappling with complex issues, marking his transition into more mature roles. He continued to challenge himself with performances in films like All Fall Down, 1962, where he played the younger brother of Warren Beatty's character, and HUD, 1963, alongside Paul Newman. In HUD, Brandon's portrayal of Lonnie Bannon, a young man caught between moral dilemmas, showcased his depth and range as an actor. Beyond acting, Brandon had a passion for music. He collaborated with friend and musician Graham Parsons, known for his work with the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers. Brandon aspired to embark on a music career, and Parsons' band, the International Submarine Band, supported him in early recording sessions. Although these musical endeavors did not achieve commercial success, they highlighted Brandon's multifaceted artistic interests. Later, Parsons co-wrote the haunting song In My Hour of Darkness with Emmylou Harris, with the very first verse paying tribute to Brandon's tragic death. Brandon DeWild experienced 2 marriages during his brief but eventful life, and he became a father to 1 son. His first marriage was to Susan M. Ma, a writer whom he married in 1963. At the time, DeWild was only 21 years old, already a well-known actor with a promising career. Susan, as a writer, shared his creative sensibilities and appreciation for the arts. Their union was initially marked by mutual admiration and a shared desire to build a life rooted in artistic expression and emotional depth. Together, they welcomed a son, Jesse DeWild, into the world, adding a new layer of meaning to Brandon's life. Becoming a father was a significant milestone, and despite the demands of his acting career and the pressures that came with fame at such a young age, Brandon was devoted to his role as a parent. However, the strain of maintaining a marriage under the spotlight, coupled with the inherent challenges of 2 ambitious young people chasing demanding careers, eventually took its toll. After 6 years of marriage, Brandon and Susan divorced in 1969. Although their relationship ended, they continued to co-parent Jesse and remained in contact through their son. Several years later, in the early 1970s, DeWild found love again, this time with Janice Jarrow. Janice, a former flight attendant and aspiring actress, brought a new sense of companionship and stability into Brandon's life, just when he needed it most. Their relationship developed quickly, and they were married in April 1972. Friends and family noted that Brandon seemed genuinely happy in the months following their wedding, more centered, more optimistic about the future. Tragically, their time together as husband and wife would be heartbreakingly brief. Just 3 months later, on July 6, 1972, Brandon DeWild died in a car accident in Denver, Colorado, at the age of 30. His untimely death devastated not only his family, friends, and fans, but also cut short a renewed chapter in his personal life that had only just begun. Despite the brevity of his second marriage, those close to him believed he had found in Janice a partner who truly understood him and supported him completely. In the golden haze of early 1960s Hollywood, a time when image was everything and secrets lived behind velvet curtains, 2 men, each remarkable in his own way, crossed paths in a moment charged with both admiration and unspoken desire. One was Paul Newman, the blue-eyed icon of American masculinity, a rising star of effortless cool who carried the rebel torch passed down from James Dean and Marlon Brando. The other? Brandon DeWild, the solemn, wide-eyed boy from Shane, now grown into a strikingly sensitive, introspective young man with artistic longings and a restless soul. By his early 20s, Brandon was no longer the tousled-haired child of the prairie. He had taken on more adult roles, most notably alongside Newman himself in HUD 1963, where their on-screen chemistry mirrored something more complicated behind the scenes. Brandon, soft-spoken, emotionally tuned, looked up to Newman with something deeper than professional admiration. He wasn't just impressed by Paul's talent or aura, he was captivated. Newman's rugged confidence, that blend of warmth and aloofness, lit a fire in Brandon he never quite understood or could fully contain. On set, their dynamic was palpable. Newman, then in his late 30s, noticed how Brandon lingered between takes, quietly watching him. Brandon would ask him questions about acting, about the philosophy of performance, sometimes even about marriage and fidelity, in ways that felt coded, elliptical. Newman, ever the gentleman, would answer kindly, but evasively. Perhaps he sensed the undertone, but chose not to disturb the surface. What Brandon felt may have remained ambiguous, even to himself. Raised in the harsh spotlight of child stardom, coming of age in an era deeply hostile to open queerness, he was a young man who wore vulnerability like a second skin. He craved intimacy, yet feared exposure. It was a tension familiar to many actors of the time, those living double lives beneath the unforgiving glare of fame. According to whispered stories, never confirmed, always denied, Brandon once invited Newman to a late-night gathering at his rented bungalow off Sunset Boulevard during a break in filming. It was meant to be a small get-together, but few guests showed. Whether by design or coincidence, the night came down to just the two of them. Brandon played guitar, his touch gentle, soulful. He offered Paul a drink, perhaps bourbon, which Newman sipped, as always, with measured moderation. The conversation turned philosophical, as it often did with Brandon. He opened up about loneliness, about fame, about the parts of himself he felt he could never fully reveal. And then, the moment came. The quiet longing. Brandon's unspoken love for Paul Newman. Brandon DeWild, the gifted and charismatic young actor best known for his work as a child star in films like Shane, lived a life that was both intensely public and profoundly private. While much of his career was spent in the limelight, there were aspects of his personal life that remained shrouded in secrecy. Rumors and whispered stories that only those closest to him might have known. One such story, rarely discussed openly, revolves around his complicated relationship with the legendary Paul Newman. In the glittering circles of 1950s and 60s Hollywood, where image was everything and discretion was paramount, it was rumored that Brandon harbored a deep admiration, and perhaps something more, for Newman. Newman, already an established star and icon of cool sophistication, was both an idol and a source of fascination for the younger actor. According to insider accounts, Brandon didn't merely admire Paul from afar. He actively sought to win his attention and affection in subtle, deliberate ways. Brandon's attempts to seduce Paul weren't aggressive. They were a delicate dance, a blend of charm, vulnerability, and youthful audacity. He understood the power of nuance, the silent weight of a lingering glance. Newman was a man of magnetic presence, piercing blue eyes, effortless charm, and untouchable cool. But Brandon, with his own striking looks and sensitive nature, was no ordinary admirer. He used quiet conversation to build connection, talking with Paul about acting, art, and the strange weight of fame. He had a gift for making others feel seen, and with Newman, he offered the kind of emotional space where deeper things could rise to the surface. In public settings, Brandon would position himself nearby, offering a warm smile or a quick brush of the hand. His compliments came disguised as casual remarks, praise for a film, admiration for Paul's philanthropy, or a simple observation about how he carried himself with effortless grace. Each word was chosen with care, a coded message, "I see you," in a world where being truly seen is rare. Brandon's seduction wasn't just verbal, it was about presence. He dressed with quiet elegance, often in clothes that subtly emphasized his youthful allure. His warmth, his openness, the flicker of vulnerability in his expression, all of it was an invitation. Yet beneath those gestures lay the tension of the times. Both men lived in a culture that demanded silence about such feelings. The pressure to maintain a public facade meant any deeper connection had to remain hidden, secret, a whispered possibility. Brandon's attempts were laced with bittersweet knowledge that what he sought might never be embraced or even acknowledged. Still, those who witnessed these moments felt the quiet longing behind his actions. A young man reaching for something real, in a world built on illusion. Whether Paul Newman truly understood or ever reciprocated remains a mystery. But what is certain is this: Brandon DeWild's efforts to connect were heartfelt, courageous, and deeply human. In the end, this hidden chapter reflects the larger struggle of many queer actors of that era, navigating their desires in silence, longing for connection, while living under the relentless gaze of a society not yet ready to understand them. Brandon's story, especially his quiet yearning for Paul Newman, stands as a haunting reminder of the humanity behind the glamour and the battles fought in the shadows. On July 6, 1972, Brandon DeWild's promising life and career came to a sudden and tragic end when he was involved in a fatal automobile accident in the state of Colorado. At the time, DeWild had been in Colorado for professional reasons, taking on a theatrical role in the stage production of the popular play Butterflies Are Free. The show was being performed at the historic Elitch Theater in Denver, a venue known for hosting generations of acclaimed actors. Brandon, who had successfully transitioned from child star to serious adult performer, was working to re-establish himself in the world of live theater. His return to the stage was part of a broader effort to expand his artistic range, to move beyond film and television, and embrace the raw, intimate energy of live performance. But while staying in the Denver area during the run of the show, Brandon was killed in a car accident in the nearby suburb of Lakewood, Colorado. He had been driving a camper van, a vehicle often used for regional tours and travel, when for reasons still unclear, it veered off the road. The van struck a guardrail, then crashed into a parked truck, flipping onto its side. The force of the impact left Brandon pinned inside the wreckage. Emergency responders rushed to the scene and worked to free him from the mangled vehicle. He was taken to St. Anthony Hospital in Denver, where doctors fought to save his life. But his injuries were extensive: a broken back, a fractured neck, and a shattered leg, wounds consistent with the violence of the crash. At 7:20 p.m., Brandon DeWild was pronounced dead. He was just 30 years old, a young man still in his prime, with his most powerful years as a mature actor likely still ahead of him. The news devastated fans, colleagues, and those who had watched him grow up, from a gifted boy in Shane to a deeply sensitive adult performer with rare emotional depth. Initially, Brandon was laid to rest in Hollywood, California, a fitting location for someone whose life and legacy were so entwined with the motion picture industry. From his breakout at age 11 to decades of acclaimed work, Hollywood had both shaped and celebrated his talent. But sometime after his burial, his parents made a quiet decision to move him closer to home. Wanting their son to rest near family, they had his remains reinterred at Pine Lawn Memorial Park in Farmingdale, New York. There on Long Island, his family could visit him more often, keep his memory close, and feel the presence of the boy they had raised, loved, and shared with the world. Brandon DeWild's death was not only a personal loss, but a cultural one. As a performer, he had shown remarkable emotional intelligence and a rare ability to convey vulnerability. The kind of talent that doesn't just entertain, it lingers. The accident cut short a career already extraordinary, but still full of untapped promise. His sudden passing left behind not only grief, but a haunting question of what might have been. A life filled with artistry, beauty, and quiet brilliance tragically ended too soon. He was only 30 when the final curtain fell. But Brandon DeWild left behind more than a career. He left behind echoes of raw talent, quiet longing, and a kind of vulnerability the camera could never fake. From a tear-streaked boy calling after Shane to a young man navigating the treacherous waters of fame, identity, and desire, Brandon's life was never just about acting. It was about reaching for something real: connection, meaning, love, in a world that often demanded masks instead of truth. In a time when Hollywood silenced queerness, when longing had no name, and love between men could only be hinted at in shadows, Brandon dared to feel. And in those feelings, whether whispered in a late-night conversation with Paul Newman or strummed softly into a song, he revealed his most human self. He may not have gotten the ending he deserved, but his story matters, because it reminds us of how many others lived like he did. Hidden, hopeful, and heart first. Brandon DeWild's journey was never just one of fame. It was one of fragility, of courage, of a boy who grew up under the spotlight and still sought the light of understanding. If this story moved you, if you felt something real in the silence between the lines, then then don't let it disappear. Like, share, and comment below. Tell us what part of Brandon's story stayed with you the most. And if you want more untold stories like his, make sure to subscribe to LGBTQ+ Vibes, because the truth is, some stars never stop shining, even after they're gone.